Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So today we get to the issue about reciting a surah after Surah Al-Fatiha. After reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, you can recite anything from the Quran. This is important to know, as there are certain times in Salah where you can recite Quran and certain times in Salah where you can make adhkar. And there are, as for example, you can't recite Quran whilst you're in ruku' or sujood. In these times, we would make the adhkar which are taught to us by the Prophet ﷺ. Now, if we begin a new surah after Surah Al-Fatiha, we can say the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim silently, as discussed earlier, and then begin the next surah. The dalil, the evidence for this is which is a Sahih Hadith. The great Tabi'i Ata, he said to the close meaning, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, in every prayer there is recitation, and we heard Prophet ﷺ say, we tell you what we say we heard from Prophet ﷺ. So shows this is not an opinion of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu himself, as it's marfu'an, as he's saying it from the Prophet ﷺ. And that we don't tell you what we do not hear, and we don't tell you what we didn't know, meaning we tell you what we heard. Whoever recites Kitab, which is Surah Al-Fatiha, has done enough, meaning if you do this, then you have met the basic requirement. And whoever does more than that, then this is better. So this shows that in regular salawat, to read through a surah after Surah Al-Fatiha, it is mustahab. It is not an arkan or wajib of the salah. So this is from the sunan of the salawat. Imam Nawawi in Sharh of Sahih Muslim, he said about this hadith that the phrase whoever recites Kitab has done enough, and whoever does more than that, then this is better, indicates that Surah Al-Fatiha is obligatory. So you must recite Surah Al-Fatiha. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu saying that the one who has recited Surah Al-Fatiha has done enough, meaning whoever did not recite Surah Al-Fatiha, he has not done enough. Imam Nawawi, he mentions ijma'an on this issue. He mentions that there is consensus of the ulama on this issue. Also, Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, in Sharh al-Mumti, he says according to Jamhur, meaning according to the majority of ulama, reciting a surah after Surah Al-Fatiha is sunnah, it is not fard. For example, in the last rak'ah of Maghrib or last two of Isha, there is no need to recite a surah after Surah Al-Fatiha. But if someone does it, there's nothing to say that the salah is invalid, as there are some hadith to say Prophet ﷺ did. That's why Shaykh Albani rahimahullah, he said if someone did it, nothing wrong. But the regular way of Prophet ﷺ, the sunnah regularly is that, for example, in Fajr you recite Surah Al-Fatiha and then a surah after it. Same in the first two of Maghrib, in the first two of Dhuhr, first two of Asr, first two of Isha. But in the last one of Maghrib, the last two of Isha, the last two of Asr, the last two of Zuhr, there's no need to recite a surah after Surah Al-Fatiha. It's not the regular way of Prophet ﷺ, but there are hadith mentioned. So if someone does it occasionally, nothing wrong, inshallah. Now we should speak about the Sunan Salawat. This should all be made 2 by 2, which is the regular way of Prophet ﷺ. For example, if you're going to make 4 Sunan for Asr, before the Fard Asr, you make it 2 by 2. For example, you make 2, make the Taslim, and make another 2. Same with Qiyam al-Layl. But sometimes Prophet ﷺ did combine them, as mentioned by Ibn al-Qayyim in the book Zad al-Ma'ad. But the regular way is 2, in which you will recite Al-Fatiha and another surah. Now we speak about the Witr Salah, which can be 1 or 3 or 5 or 7. The regularly Prophet ﷺ made 1. You recite surah and a surah Al-Fatiha after it. The sunnah is to recite Surah Al-Ikhlas in the Witr. And Ibn Qudama, he carries on to say, ثم يقرأ سورة تكون في الصبح من طوال المفصل وفي المغرب من كساره وفي سائر الصلوات من أوساطه. So now we speak about which surah to recite in what prayers. From the Sahih Hadith in Sahih Muslim, Jabir radiallahu anhu said, Nabi ﷺ used to recite in Fajr, he would recite Surah Al-Kahf, Surah Al-Qaf, which is longer surah. And in Sahih Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ used to recite between 60 and 100 ayat in Fajr. Some ulama felt this is talking about in each rak'ah. But what Ibn Hajar and others have taken as a stronger opinion is that this is for the whole salah, meaning 30 and 30 or 50 and 50 to make a total of 60, as it says for Fajr, and doesn't mention in each rak'ah. Now this is what Prophet ﷺ did, and this is what we should aim for. However, one should look at his situation. For example, if you're in a place where the people behind you cannot stand for so long or are not used to it, and you go ahead and read Surah Al-Baqarah, this does not mean that. you have to look at the situation. The evidence for this is that in Sahih Muslim, where Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu was assigned by Prophet ﷺ to lead his people in Isha. So Mu'adh radiallahu anhu used to pray Isha with Prophet ﷺ, and then he would lead his people. And then he would lead his people for Isha. Now in this, there is another masla that we can speak about, which is someone who has prayed his fard salah can lead the people praying nafil with them praying fard behind him. Now some ulama felt that making fard behind someone who has who is praying nafil is not permissible. But however, this hadith shows that it is permissible, as Mu'adh radiallahu anhu would pray his Isha, his fard with Prophet ﷺ, and then he would lead his people. So now we know that you can't make two fard Isha, so he's making nafil and the people they are making their fard salah behind him. So this is an evidence. Another evidence is when Jibreel alayhi salam, when he led the Prophet ﷺ, and we know that the salah is not fard on the malaika, it's not fard on the angels. So it was sunnah for him, nawafil, and it was fard for the Prophet ﷺ. But even if you just look at the hadith as mentioned before, this is dalil on its own. This is also an evidence. But the issue we are studying here, we find that Prophet ﷺ, when he was told by the people that Mu'adh radiallahu anhu would read Al-Baqarah in one rak'ah and sometimes more than it, then this was difficult on the people. So they came and complained to the Prophet ﷺ. So Prophet ﷺ told Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, to the close meaning, do you want to become a fitna for them? Meaning, don't be a fitna on them. You want to recite a lot, but look at your audience. Recite small surahs. So this shows every imam should look at his audience and judge and do accordingly. And we look at the Dhuhr Salah of the Prophet ﷺ, which is reported in Sahih Muslim that Nabi ﷺ used to recite 30 ayahs. So this is looking at the mid-range surahs. Many hadiths prove that Prophet ﷺ preferred longer surahs in Salat al-Fajr, and in Maghrib he would prefer the moderate to short surahs, and in the rest of the salawat, Prophet ﷺ would read the moderate surahs. Now, there's a hadith mentioned which says the Prophet ﷺ in Fajr, he ﷺ read Al-Falaq and Al-Nas. This hadith is recorded by Uqbah radiallahu anhu. So this tells us there is jawaz to read less and more, looking at the ability and the lesson to be taught. Here the Prophet ﷺ was going to explain the importance of these two surahs, so he led with them. Even though it's Fajr, he still read with these short surahs, and we know that these surahs are short surahs. Ibn Qudama, he continues, he says, ويجهر الإمام بالقراءة في الصبح والأولين من المغرب والعشاء ويسر فيما عاد ذلك. So Ibn Qudama, he says, and the Imam should recite out loud in Fajr, Salah, and in the first two of Maghrib and Isha, and recite silently in the rest of them, meaning Dhuhr and Asr. Bahauddin al-Maqdisi in Al-Umdah, which is an expansion of the book we're studying, Al-Umdah, he says to the close meaning, there is no khilaf amongst the ulama that it is mustahab for the Imam to recite out loud and in the first two rakat, for example in Fajr, and then Maghrib and Isha, and silently in the last rakat of Maghrib and the last two of Isha, and for Dhuhr and Asr collectively silently. Now some ulama felt that it is wajib for the Imam to recite out loud, but it's okay, as it doesn't take away from the fact that you still have to that you do recite out loud for those rakat and silently for others. Now looking at the Jummah Salah or Tarawih Salah, what do we do in this case? In this case, we go back to the practice of the Prophet ﷺ. Every Jummah Prophet ﷺ led, and every Eid Salah he led, he ﷺ read them out loudly. For example, when he ﷺ was praying at the night in Ramadan, the Sahabi joined him. Prophet ﷺ read out loud, as Sahaba tells us which surahs and in which order he led them. So this shows that they were out loud. And also, there is no khilaf amongst ulama as mentioned, as is mentioned from other madhab also. The Hanaf mentioned this method and mentioned it for it to be wajib for the Imam to recite out loud, as mentioned in Muqtasar Quduri. The Malikiya, as well as mentioned in Muqtasar Khalil, and Imam al-Hajjawi, as mentioned in Zad al-Mustaqni for the Hanabila, and Nawawi also mentioned this in Al-Majmu' for the Shafi'i. Now, as for the reason why we recite out loud in certain rakats and silently in others, the answer for this is the way of Prophet ﷺ. So this is why we do it. Now, as for the recitation in the Nawafil, the ulama of Islam have some opinions. Do you pray them out loud or silently? Now, in regards to this, on what is the strongest opinion in that is that those nawafil around the silent farz salawat are read silently. Those that are loud, those that are read out loud are read out loud. For example, if you're going to make sunan before dhuhr or asr, if you're going to make sunan before dhuhr or asr, you can read them out silently. And if you're going to make sunan after maghrib or isha, you can read them out loudly, but not so loud that you disturb others. There's also a hadith mentioned by Abu Dawud, which is a strong narration, is that he said that the recitation of the Prophet ﷺ at night was sometimes low and sometimes a little loud. So meaning looking at the situation. For example, if you come to the masjid and you find people are praying individually, you don't go and recite very loudly that you disturb others. But if you're at home and you want to make Qiyamul Layl and you want to recite a bit loudly, there's nothing wrong in that, inshallah. This is the opinion of the Hanaf, as a famous Hanafi scholar, Kaysani. He mentions that Nafil Salawat with regards to the day should be read low, silent sound, and at night they have the choice to recite out loud or silently depending on the situation. The famous book of the Hanabila, which is Al-Kashf Al-Qina', which is an explanation of Al-Iqna' by Imam Mansur Buyuti, he gave the same opinion. And it's also mentioned, and also opinion of the Shafi'i as mentioned by An-Nawawi and others. So also we don't see a khilaf on this issue. So now Ibn Qudama, he carries on to say, he says, ثم يكبر ويركع ويرفع يديه كرفعه الأول. So now we began the salah by saying Allahu Akbar. So by reciting the takbir and raising the hands. As mentioned before, saying the takbir, Allahu Akbar, and raising the hands is two different things. And then we folded the hands and we discussed the proofs on where to fold the hands. Then we spoke about where to look in the salah. And then we also spoke about the adhkar before Fatiha. And we spoke about the Fatiha, and then we spoke about the surah after Al-Fatiha. Now we get to the part of going into ruku'. Ibn Qudama, he mentions here, the worshipper says Allahu Akbar like he did to begin, and we said all agree, and all ulama agree on this issue, and then he raises the hands while going into ruku'. And now this is where there is khilaf amongst the ulama on this issue. Inshallah, we will pick up from this point of raising the hands while going into the ruku', inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairah.